All right. Hello. Giving it 2 minutes, as always. A little bit over scheduled time, but hopefully that's okay. And then we're starting 9:11 exactly. Look at that. So we're giving it 2 minutes, and then we're starting. All right. So today we're doing a little bit of everything. Physiognomy. Um, I put down shadow psychology. It, it sounds, it sounds nice. It rings nicely in the ear. Um, but there's also a meaning to it. It's not one of those how to use psychology to get people to do what you want shticks. Um, thank God, goes a little bit deeper than that. Um, but we're going to basically have an introductory understanding, thanks to this space today, on the implications of physiognomy. I get complained to sometimes that I won't speak on physiognomy and face reading, as that is basically, my primary area of expertise, which I don't even know how true that is. Um, but it's definitely been something that I've been very interested in, and I've had a very keen eye for. Um, so let's share a little bit about physiognomy, and this is basically before we release any courses, before we release any, I don't know, any sort of information out there in the world. Now, firstly, you need to know this. Um, Physiognomy is it's a very slippery slope. Um, unless you're absolutely confident in a sort of what kind of formulaic or intuitive reading you do in physiognomy, then it's probably good not to do it. Um, because there's a very large chance of error, and the margin is very small. So that means, and this has been said before, due to this reason, I guess, that, physiognomy is a pseudoscience, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But in truth, physiognomy is just a very complex, interconnected science and interconnected system that requires a meticulous eye for it to be made to work. But I assure you, as everything else in this world, um, the construction of the human body, especially the human face, is not accidental, which is what most people in mainstream media or quote unquote the scientific fields would like you to believe. They would want you to believe that oh, things are just things. Some people have, smaller noses, some people have larger noses, some people have, are taller, some people are shorter, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you are someone who likes to question the world around them, right? Um, you'll very soon discover that this this sort of very shallow, thin coating that mainstream media offers you is just a view of our world that basically doesn't even try to hide um any secrets from you, because they think, and they're correct in this, I believe. They think that if they do try to hide the more obvious things from you, you'll go out searching for them, right? Like, well, why are they being so secretive? What do they have to hide? But if they just tell you, oh, you know what? Like, if they just dumb it down, if they just simplify it to, like, oh, well, the sky is blue. Yeah, the sky is blue. It's always been blue, right? You're not going out there and research, well, why is the sky blue, right? Why would you even be interested in that? So you have to understand that the things that are hidden from you are the things that are supposed to be obvious. But our conceptualization of those things are so incredibly warped thanks to this shallow coding that's presented to us all the time. What I'm trying to tell you is that we're basically used to being spoon fed, dumped down versions of the truth, right? True information. And this is the same. The human mind, the human brain is literally constructed to decipher information in a millisecond as soon as you see someone, and especially their face. Why? Because the face acts as a sort of what I call a portal to their being, right? You have all the information there. And why is this so? Well, because let's, pretend you are you know, prehistoric human, and you are lost in some, you know, god-forsaken jungle. I love using the jungle as a setting. It really grounds us in our primality, and helps us understand just where we started from, right? So you pretend you're sitting in some jungle, you know, there's terrible danger everywhere. Everywhere. There's snake beneath, the stones and the rocks and the leaves. There's predators all around you. And there's other tribes of humans. They're not so friendly. Some of them are very hungry. And most of them are cannibalistic, let's say, right? So when you see someone, you see someone peering through the branches, some other human, right? And they're looking at you. What is the priority of the mind at that very specific moment, right? They need to understand whether they're in danger or not, to simplify it to the most primal case, right? So when they look at someone, they need to read, well, what's this person been through? What's their story? Who the hell are they? Where did they come from? How hungry are they? Right? Do they have a family or not? And all of these notions and sentiments are things that one can read. But we have become so distrustful of this voice, right, that reads this information due to the logicization, if you can use that word, of our minds, that it's become increasingly difficult to trust this voice. But this voice is not gone anywhere. It's within every human being, every human mind. Now back to the jungle, okay? Let's ground ourselves in the jungle. Just feel you're barefoot, just feel the earth and the grass below you. It's a little bit hot, right? You're holding your little hunting spear, your slingshot or whatever you'd be holding. You're in the jungle, you see another human being, peering through the tall grass or some branches in the distance. Now understand that even different tribes and different, not even talking about different races, but different tribes of humans of similar races have very meaningful evolutionary differences. And these evolutionary differences mostly are showcased where? On the face. Okay, some people have, well, let's say you live in a more mountainous region, right? These people will have very sharp, narrow features, very sharp and narrow, especially on the nose. They'll have larger noses. Their noses, like evolutionarily speaking, right? They have to be more narrow and they have to be more elongated because when you suck in that high altitude air, that cold air, right? Firstly, it needs to warm that up, right? It has to warm it up. And secondly, it has to have more suction if the air is dense, right? Which it is in higher elevation. Now, if you go to a place where there's sandstorms, historically, a location where there's sandstorms everywhere, right? People will grow to have very tiny noses, very tiny and flat, right? Why is this? Well, because you don't want to get an infection up in there because you have all kinds of shit crawling up in your nose all the time. So you have to become efficient. The body has to minimize that, right? Body has to close that up. Now, this is just from an evolutionary perspective, mind you, and this has nothing to do with the inner mind or the inner essence of a person. But we're gonna get there. Now, let's say this jungle we're in is the intersecting point between these two tribes or two cultures, and they look at one another, and one of them, let's say one of them has a Roman or a Caucasian nose, and the other one has like a steppy type of vibe to them. That is an alien for a human, right? It's an alien. They've never seen anything like that. Wow. And they have this understanding of not specifically danger, but just something that they've not seen before, which usually will relate to danger. The unknown is dangerous for you, for the prehistoric primal human in the jungle. Okay, you haven't seen it before, and you need only one mistake, and you screw up that one time, and bam, buddy, you're dead. Your wife and children are carrying your corpse back to your man cave or wherever the fuck you live, right? So caution goes hand in hand with intuition. Danger also triggers intuition, what they would call the fight or flight. But what else triggers intuition is flow. And flow is something that human beings, if you've noticed this, maybe you've experienced flow when you were younger, don't experience that very much anymore. We don't. As a collective, the flow state doesn't exist anymore. Isn't that fucked up? When's the last time you really talked to someone who was truly in a flow state? We'll get to this. We'll get to this later as well. Let's go back to the jungle again. Now, evolutionarily, these two develop different traits, and you'll tell me, well, Jack, what's the case? What's the case there? Like, if it's all evolutionary traits, well, my dearest friend, I will tell you this: the external mirrors the internal, and the internal mirrors the external. So their temperament, the temperament of these two quote unquote aliens, who just happen to be hunting in the same jungle and are staring one another down, the temperament will be vastly different. And it will be brutally and aggressively shaped by the environment in which they were born. Now, how do we understand how these traits affect their temperament? Well, that's an interesting question, right? Well, what does it mean to have, like a larger nose with a beak or whatever? What does it mean to have a flat nose in the face? Well, then there are different evolutionary survival strategies. One would tell you, if you talk to an evolutionary psychologist, right? They would tell you, and that thing exists, by the way, in evolutionary psychology, a very underrated area of expertise. They would tell you that there are different forms of survival, right? So let's say the one with the flat nose, right? That is someone who lives a tribal lifestyle. So their understanding of what survival is staying close with their family, right? Is banding together and moving through the desert in a caravan. And the other one's understanding of survival is self-sustenance, individuality, solo. Because in the mountains, sometimes it so happens that you're isolated a lot. You're in isolation, right? And people who are from the more mountainous regions of the earth, you will this if you did a research that which no one will do, by the way, because they'll say, "Oh, it's racist." Oh, heebie-jeebies. You'll discover that they have a very, very well developed equilibrium and a sense of balance, and their senses, their hearing, their vision is usually superior. And people who move around a lot, for example, if you go to Africa, right? And if you do a study on the body, the physiology of people who live in Africa, and I know Africa is huge, largest continent, but you take any point in Africa, they will have a very similar collection of traits, and that's high natural bone density, all around lean, explosive, fast twitch muscle fiber. Why? Because they need it for survival. They will have longer limbs, and some of them will have narrow body frames, and others will have wider narrow frame, wider body frames. Question is, what does that mean? And if you go to a land where people don't move around much, so let's say you take a mountainous landscape and you go there and you see that, well, you know what? People don't travel very much over here. They just kind of like sit where they are. They'll have thick, shorter bones, right? They'll have high bone density as well because of the natural minerals that occur there. But they will have far less endurance in the muscles that hold them together. They will have far shorter limbs. Why? Because they don't need to run 5 hours a day. They don't. They need to, let's say, you know, defend their cave or their settlement from, attacking tribes. That means high explosivity, high explosive power once, and then you take a big rest. So all of these things shape a person's idea of what survival is. Now, why I'm explaining this very basic thing to you is because this has been presented to us as a happenstance thing. Oh, it just happens. Oh, like these people are like that. Like, oh, Africans are like tall and lanky, and oh, the Dutch are very tall. And no, this is an understanding of history as we know it with fro- within the context of the genetic imprint of the people who passed through it. Really understand this, like what the implications of this are. So when you look at a human being, you have their whole history, you have the whole history of their ancestry, so on and so forth, just from the physiological attributes that they have. And this is just from the body, not from the face. So you basically know what their ancestors have been doing. You know, whether they lived a sort of a sporty lifestyle or not, or a survivalist or a minimalist lifestyle, right? When you look at a very typical Indian person, who's like short and lanky and narrow, and they have very small muscle mass most of the times. Same thing for most Asians from that region, right? Well, their idea of survival is efficiency and minimalist lifestyle, right? To the point where it has seeped into the ideologies of their religions and their philosophies, right? And by that I mean they're literally they've designed themselves to be able to survive on, I don't know, a bowl of rice a day. Can you do that? I can't friggin' do that. You give me a bowl of rice a day, I'm dying in a week, right? I need big man food, right? I need meat. I need the blood of animals to live because that's what I'm used to. That's what my body requires for sustenance because my body has to carry the load of warriorhood, right? And most likely so does yours. Now, some cultures or nations, they will outlive, they will just outlive you. They will not defeat you, they will not conquer you, they will not be flamboyant about it. They will literally just outbreed and outlive you. That's also a form of survival. So, what have we learned here? Well, we have learned here that the body mimics its history. And it tells you how it expects to survive in an increasingly brutal and destructive world, right? And that's not me subjectively telling you this. This is the objective interpretation of the world of via the human body. That's how the body perceives where it is. I don't care how you perceive where you are. That's how your body perceives it. When your body takes fat and stores it around your waistline, why does it do that? And why does it do that according to the cortisol levels that get released in your body when you're stressed? Why is cortisol attached to you getting a little bit more chubby, right? Well, my dear friends, when the body expects to be stressed out, it starts saving fat and depositing it in on the waistline. Because if the body expects to be stressed out, or in a critical situation, or in a situation where food is not readily available, and this could be wholly psychological, by the way, food can be available to you every day, but if you feel unsure of the future, your body is going to do that. It will release cortisol, right? If you're a male, your testosterone levels will first increase and then they will gradually drop. And you'll end up, with a little belly. And that's because your body expects stress in the future. So again, this is not our subjective understanding of right of how we feel about the world. Oh, love and light and everything's fine and I'm no. Your body is preparing for war times. So I would rather believe the body, firstly, when I look at a person rather than the person. Now, if a person has 0.1% body fat, right, which probably is impossible, but still, well, I would say that this person comes from a very stress free environment. They don't expect stress in the future. They feel very much in control of their lives. But I would also say that this person has most likely, so that's like 95% of these people who have very low, fat storage in their bodies, that they have no clue just how much danger they're in or could be because they haven't experienced it. So when I see someone like that, well, I would say, you know what, you're probably someone who's figured it all out, or most likely, right? You're someone who hasn't earned their scars yet. Because if you had, you wouldn't be so relaxed. If you knew where you lived, you would not be so relaxed. Now, let's get to the next layer of that because there's layers to this stuff. Very interesting layers that all deserve to be explored. Now, we've learned what we've learned, and this is information most of you already know, but knowing is not understanding the implications of a certain wisdom, right? It's just, okay, I know this information, blah, 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 so A equals B or whatever. But the implications of that are even more frightening in a cool sense, in an awesome sense. It's very amazing what the human body can do when you reach the higher layers, the deeper layers. So this is our primal body. Look at someone you have a history of who they are, where they come from. Like if they have thicker bones, on the backside of their feet, you understand that this person is from people that don't move around a lot, right? But they can stand their ground. Great wrestling nations have body types like this. Great wrestling nations. What does wrestling need? Well, you need to hold your ground. You need to, you know, push and be able to push and pull with extreme under extreme duress with you know fast explosive movements. But what happens when you get to the face? Because the face, we know, the primary function of one's facial features, and you have two functions, right? The primary is for mating. Now mating is the the grandest survival strategy of them all. If one does not mate, right, which is the understanding of evolutionary survival, if one does not mate, their genetic, you know, collection, this incredible harvest of experience and wisdom passed down from the ages, it does not survive, right? If we want to look at it in that manner, which I don't, but just humor me here. So people want to you can't show yourself from your with your body, right? They can't be like, oh, just look at the oh, look at my legs, or ha, look at my elbows, how attractive my elbows are. So you need an area on the human body where it is you can have all these things concentrated, where it's easy to speak to one another just by looking at one another, right? Through symmetry, through skin tone, through micro expressions, and this area is the face. And if we were non-sentient beings, if we were monkeys, right, this would be very simple, right? You look at someone's face and we're like, oh, they have these kinds of nostrils and those kinds of lips, and their teeth look healthy, and their eyes look like can see see farther than most, and yeah, that's a great person to mate with, right? The monkey. That's how the monkey judges. But what happens when you have a rich inner world? What happens when the hand of God reaches down to your fucking existence as the monkey you are and injects a poison called consciousness into your fucking being? What happens then? What happens when this element, this spark of chaos is introduced to the primal mind that is hell bent on this fucking surviving, right? And kind of like getting the most berries out of each bush in the jungle. What a miserable, pathetic experience, right? And to be exalted from this experience and quickly shuffled into a lifestyle of meaning and moral and philosophy, and to be dragged into conscious fucking being, right? What happens then? Well, what happens then is something called higher values start to develop within the human psyche. And these higher values are so incredibly primitively subjective, right? That whatever you knew about survival in the past, those objective truths that we talked about, get flung out from the window. And you sit down with yourself, and then then you start to have an understanding of, oh, okay, I am a highly developed soul trapped within a primally developed body. I'm within a body that has been designed evolutionarily, pushed to its absolute limits and boundaries just to survive. And now you're telling me survival isn't the most important thing? Wow, that's fucked up. But it's fucked up in a beautiful way, in a beautiful sense, because that's how you know you've upgraded from your journey of survival, which most people today are still in, by the way. They're gripped by their evolutionary state. But once you've injected consciousness into these monkeys, then you start to understand that what they display on their face is their innermost truths. And those innermost truths are expressed not with words. Remember, we didn't always have words. We had consciousness and sentience way before we had words. And this communication had to happen somehow, right? We'll talk about telepathy a little bit too, but this it's kind of connected, but not too much. But this communication had to happen instantaneously. You didn't have time. Like, oh, are you a friend or an enemy? Are you here to kill me or, give me tea? So when you look at someone's face and you have that hunch, you have that feeling of like, I cannot trust this person, that is there for a goddamn reason. Now, if this is a trauma response that you've had because of post traumatic, stress, no, this is different. That's different. That's not intuition. Okay? So sever that connection, sever that link between trauma and past experience and intuition. Past experience is, you know, I don't know, a donkey won't drink from the same bucket twice if the water tastes like shit. That is survival. Intuition is of higher sources. Intuition is you don't have an imprint of survival telling you these things. It's not about danger or threat. It's divinely emerging within you. When you look at a painting, right? There are thoughts that divinely emerge within you. This is why art became of the highest importance in a human society that was injected with consciousness. And the thought forms that are created through the art, through the spell that you're watching, That's what art is. It's a spell. It is a frequency frozen in time. The thought forms that emerge within you, the more intuitive you are, the more information you'll gain. When you look at symbolism, when you look at the pyramids, study their shape, understand their size and scale and symmetry and geometry with the world at large. When you look at that, the more intuitive you are, the more sensitive to you are to what that thing is, the more information you'll channel and funnel out of it. So the awakened mind is one who can just look at things and look through them. So not through a three-dimensional matrix, as in, oh, I'm looking at a cup, right? Oh, I'm looking at a necklace. No, no, no. To look and to know and to understand, because whatever you are focusing on is creating emergent thought within you. And this emergent thought has nothing to do with your survival. You cannot be intuitive if you're survival based. Animals cannot be intuitive. There's much research on this. Animals do not have intuition. So why do we have it? Why do we have it, smartasses? Because the primary directive for humanity for a very long time has not been survival, or has not been our material or physical survival. That is a function of the body. The body needs to survive in this world to buy you and me and everyone else more time. But the prime directive of the human experience is their spiritual survival. And spiritual survival often clashes with the physical. So when you look at someone's face, you have a duality there. Everything comes in twos, but everything has a third hidden aspect. Remember that. Remember that knowledge. Everything comes in twos, and whatever comes in twos has a third hidden aspect, because that is the shadow side of the world we live in. It is by design that our world is created in this manner. You have two eyes and then a third hidden eye. You have two arms and then a third hidden arm of the government, right? Every two has a third, and every one has an opposite, which creates the two, right? You have things that are found on the human body that come in twos, and then there are things that are found in the human body that comes in one. You have the genitals that come in one, right? But even that one is made of two equal parts. We'll get to that later. It's a little bit different. But you look at a penis, right? And then you look at a vagina. Those are one opposites, right? There's two. What's the hidden? What is the hidden factor of those two things? So what the universe is trying to show us here through the geometry of the body is, if one thing exists in its utmost radical expression, then another thing must exist in the other utmost radical. If you have ultimate evil, then ultimate good has to exist. That's just the law of this world, right? Same thing with what I just mentioned, the genitals. What's the hidden aspect of those two? Think on this. And how is the hidden aspect of a thing unlocked? Well, the hidden aspect of a thing is unlocked when those two things, which are part of the one same whole, converge, when they harmonize, when they resonate and connect with one another. And then, oh, suddenly, you could connect the female and the male genitalia, and suddenly you have creation. The hidden aspect of the feminine and the masculine is the creation of a third energy, right? In our bodies, and especially with our physiognomy, they're very they're full of these little hidden meanings and symbols and secrets. And like I said before, all of these things converge on the face, right? Because we have to have a good understanding of who we're dealing with, who we're talking to. So if you look at a face like a painting, and paintings have many layers. Like we said, there's a primal layer, there's a survival based layer that's a genetic imprint. That cannot be molded by the sentience of the soul that inhabits that body. But what I call the layer of deviations, that can be molded. That is how the soul. So if you took a painting, right? And this painting is of survival. And then you took a sentient soul and you put it in front of a painting and you said, well, how do you see your survival? How do you interpret this journey of survival that you've undertaken? And then they would draw some things on that painting. They would change it because that's how they, quote unquote, subjectively interpret it. And they would give you their kind of like idea of, well, this is how I see my survival. Why? Because this is required for their spiritual advancement. And then there's the subconscious, there's the hidden layer, like we talked about, the third layer that unbeknownst to most people, so whatever they paint in there, whatever they paint on that picture, they just so happen to give us information about themselves because, well, why did they choose to do it? Well, you can just go off the mainstream thought, like, line of thought here. Just, oh, just people just do stuff. I don't believe in just stuff. I believe that everything is of ultimate consequence and importance. This is the thinking mind of a scientist who hasn't lost his faith, right? So when you look at someone's face and then you understand, well, this is their genetic imprint, and oh, look, this is how they interpret that genetic imprint. Why would they interpret it that way? What are they hiding? So then you go to the third layer, and the third layer is very telling. And some people, because these are the throes of the sophisticated mind, they feel emotions like fear and shame and guilt, very complex emotions that are associated with this layer. And these emotions, well, let's say that great efforts are made to sometimes hide or distract from these emotions. So people are telling you who they are exactly, objectively, hidden behind this coating of subjectivity. They're telling you exactly what they are. You look at someone's face, you know who they are immediately if you can read it, if you can believe in the emergent thoughts that happen within you and take that information and then run it through the lens of objectivity and survival and the formulaic sciences, you get a pristine picture of who someone is, right? Now, when you look at someone who's not, let's say they're not the most attractive or symmetrical face, right? When you look at someone like that, what do they prioritize in showing you? They prioritize in showing you, well, let's say they have larger ears, they have luscious lips, they have a narrow face, their eyes are closer to one another. They're telling you, I'm focused. They're telling you, I'm loyal and warm and accepting. They're telling you, I might need some help socializing. I'm a little bit reserved, right? These are all things that they are actively telling you. And then you look at someone like, I don't know, Brad Pitt came up last time in my comments. When you look at someone like Brad Pitt, what's Brad Pitt telling you? Is Brad Pitt warm? Is he welcoming? Would he share his food with you if he was starving? Oh, no. No, 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 no. What Brad Pitt is telling you, I am self obsessed in its highest expression. And what Brad Pitt is telling you, you have to respect me because I wouldn't share my food with you if I were starving. And there's a certain admirable quality that people find in that because they mistake that for honesty. Oh, everyone has, that side. But in truth, if I was back in that jungle, right, that we talked about, that primal jungle, and I saw Brad Pitt's face staring at me from the tall grass on the other side of that hill or whatever, I would either run or shove a spear through his eyes. Because I know what his face says. And his face says, I want to be content no matter what. Is that a person I can trust when they're hungry? To not eat my children as soon as I go to sleep? Nope. But if I see someone with a rounded face, high puffy cheeks, right? You know, wide but thinner lips, smiling eyes, large ears, large like drooped down earlobes. I wouldn't say, "Oh, you know what? Look how attractive you are." I guess you're, trying to basically prey on people and try to get them to trust you or like you because it's so nice to look at your face. I wouldn't say that at them, right? They're not particularly the most attractive person. But shit, I would share my food with that person gladly. I would gladly share my food with that person because you know what? I know that they'll share with me too. Even if we're both fucking starving in the jungle trying to survive. But you know what? No one's gonna point their finger at that person. Oh, he's such a badass. Why is he a badass? Why is Brad fucking Pitt a badass? Because what? He's hell bent on survival. Yeah, okay. He, tickles, your fancy in that sense of like, oh, he's such a bad man. Oh, he's willing to do anything to survive. This is why, let's say, women are attracted to that type sometimes, right? Because they believe if they are on their good side, that they'll include them in their journey of contention and survival, right? And they might, because it's just a symptom of being around such a person. But not when it comes down to ultimately to ultimate survival. So if it's them or you, it's always them. It's never fucking you. Me, I don't trust people like that because subjectivity can be a killer of minds. I don't know when that person, I don't know when Brad Pitt decides he's in existential danger. I really don't. And neither do you. But what I do know is that when Brad Pitt decides he's in existential danger, he's going to stab me in the back. Now, is that a guarantee? To me, that is a guarantee. Because I see that his face and his body's physiognomy and physiology has been shaped in that manner. So just because these people, remember, these people excel at high comfort environments, they excel when everything is going right, when everything is good, life is great, there is no lack or deficit of anything, they excel. But when things are going bad, those are the people that usually get hanged first, right? Because they're so their incessant desire to be content and satisfied only for themselves is so disruptive to societal and community and tribal living that communities would rather get rid of people who have that archetype. But people whose faces and whose physiology as well is morphed to prioritize, let's say, symmetry and attractive mating features, their whole existence is a function of attraction. I need you people to understand this. The woman in the red dress, right? Greatest allegory ever. Some evolutionary survivalist human beings will literally mold their entire being into seeming like an attractive mate. But this is not because, oh, beautiful soul lives in a beautiful body. Lie. This is because they're still in that state of survival. They're still in that state of what can I take from this world without others finding out? And what archetype is most celebrated in mainstream media? Who are we told are the badasses of the world? If you look up any like real documentary person, right? So the person who they made a documentary about, this scientist lady or a scientist man or a mountain climber or a biker who broke world records. If you look at their face and you look at the actor playing them, nothing alike. Fucking nothing like all the most badass and cool people on the world, right? Don't have don't have protruding jaws. They don't. They don't have, blue predatory eyes. They don't. It's only in the fucking movies. And now they've trained you and me and our children. They've trained you to see these people as extremely desirable, extremely competent, which they are not, by the way. The only thing they're competent at is seeming competent because they want to create this idea or a vision or an image within you that they are the perfect mating strategy for you for your survival. So when I call people narcissists, I don't call them narcissists because it's my subjective opinion. No, 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 no. It's what your literal being, your flesh, and your own understanding of your being and your flesh is telling me. When we look at your face, when we look at how you express yourself, your mimicry, so on and so forth, that's what you're showing. And some people get caught up in that. Some people, in a sense, like that. Some traumatized people. But physiognomy is a clashing of things. We have to remember that. And when we use a lot of people use the word, oh, dark psychology or shadow psychology. What the fuck are you talking about? What is psychology? It's psychos and logos, right? It's psyche and the logos. Half of psychology is the fucking soul. So what do you mean dark? Like a dark soul? That's what you're saying? No. Shadow psychology is just unlocking the hidden aspects of these implications that we thought we knew, but we don't. Arnold Schwarzenegger will bravely save me from trouble if I were dying. No, he fucking wouldn't. Arnold Schwarzenegger will do everything in his power to remain in power. He'll walk around in nice suits. He'll tell you shitty motivational quotes that you will find very, very inspiring, but not really. He will be self absorbed with the attention you give him. You provide for him, and he will feed off of that energy. And that energy will give him confirmation and validation that what he is doing is a strong survival strategy. And he will keep gathering wealth and hoarding wealth while telling you, hey, everything's okay. The world is in a nice place. Let's all be empathetic and tolerant. Yada yada. You know what? You be empathetic and tolerant there in the corner while I hoard the most wealth I have ever seen in my life. Every added dollar to my collection of riches is the richest I've ever been. So they get this dopamine rush each and every time. You see a fucking rich person, you add $100 to their bill, they'll still get a fucking dopamine rush. Why? Because it's the richest they've ever been. Even if they're like 1 cent richer, it doesn't matter because they prioritized that. Dopamine gets released when your survival strategy is working. And why am I showing you this side of things? I need you to understand that we live in a very deceptive world. And most people who have souls want to convince you that they're not stuck in this state of evolutionary survival, but in truth, their whole being reflects that. And if you wish to understand who to associate with and who to relate to, right, look for people who rely not on material slash primal ways of surviving, but look to people who, under duress and in critical situations or in dire situations, can retain their faith and their humanity. That's the number one metric. What when we say humanity, what is that? What is the difference between human and animal? When we say humanity, we mean that there is a higher force acting through humanity, something higher than the animal mind. That is the literal objective definition of what humanity is. It is that spark of faith. And if that spark of faith becomes dampened, right, what you have left is a narcissist. And what is a narcissist? It is someone who embraces, how to even say, the wrongfully understood pagan understanding of life. Like I said, wrongfully understood pagan. True paganism is completely different. True paganism is about oneness with life. What religious dogma would call paganism, right, is this animalistic understanding of life. I eat, you don't. If you don't eat, then I eat. I eat, I survive. Right? I shit in the jungle and I piss in the jungle, and I'm a disgraceful, disgusting thing, and my life means nothing but the food I eat and the momentary pleasure I fucking gain from it. This is how narcissists think. They're all about hedonistic maximization of pleasure. And even worse, at some point, the narcissist becomes so disrupted by the idea that they're having pleasure that they can't even figure out if they're having pleasure or not. And the only validation they can fucking get if they're receiving pleasure or not is if the persons around them are suffering. The narcissist thinks, well, I don't, because they're unable to have pleasure anymore because they have a overload, and they think, well, you know what? If I steal someone's food, that means I should be happy, and I am happy because I have the food and they don't. And that whole situation, that context is so emphasized heavily in this moment when strong emotions are shown by the person who just got something taken away from them. Maybe they don't even know it. They're flustered. They're confused, right? Or maybe they do know it. They're angry. They're sad. They're not well. And the narcissist won't think in terms of humanity and human empathy, right? In a sense of like, you know what? Hey, man, I don't care about survival. Let's both feel good. Let's both feel okay. No, 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 no. They'll stick to themselves in their petty little fucking corner, and they'll look and they'll stare and they'll fake compassion, but deep down they will feel good. And these are the monsters you have to contend with on a daily basis. Because the number of narcissists that exists on this plane right now, that is the true mind virus. The number of narcissists that exists in our world, people who have lost their journey of spiritual advancement, has never been so high in the history of history. We live in a world of narcissistic expression where literal nations are crumbling because no one wants to take a step out of their comfort. If there was ever a war against narcissism, that war was lost, my friends. Because narcissism is the modern way of life. So who the fuck are you then? Right? Objectively, not subjectively. Today is about objective. Who are you then? You crazy, deluded person walking, like swimming against the stream, walking against society's survival tactics. Who are you? I ask you, right? And I think you have a very good answer for me for that. I think you have a wonderful, beautiful answer that is, as we speak, being formed in your psyche. And I love that answer, whatever it is, because that answer is beyond the primality of the human experience. You are, all you have to tell me, Jack, I am something more than my primal desires. And that, just that, is enough for you and I to shake hands and have a report, a spiritual report. We're living and not dying. We have an understanding we're living and not dying is not our primary fascination with life and goal. For end goal, because it's meaningless. It's a stupid pursuit. It's a lazy man's or woman's pursuit. And if we can shake hands on that, we can shake hands on many other things. We can we can put hand to hand together and unlock the hidden aspects of our minds becoming intertwined and conjoining our energies, right? And then speaking about higher planes and the higher vision, a dream of Earth that I like to talk about sometimes. A dream, a vision dream. Let's say that's not of our Earth, but is of Earth ascended into a plane where most of its denizens think outside of the boundaries of their own narcissistic survival. The hidden aspect of our world is this. That's the hidden aspect of our world. To understand that nothing is hidden. And that is a paradox, my friends. And then the paradox also has a hidden aspect, but we won't talk about that today. We'll savor it for some other day. And can't give the fullness of the information, but I'll tell you this. When you start to allow the world to unfold before you, there is truly nothing that's hidden. You look at a symbol, you know what it means. You look at a face, you know who you're talking to. When you can allow it to unfold for you, it will. You can look at your own life, your own body, and know what it tells you. You could look at a thing and digest it. It will give you information. You can walk into someone's room and understand their being. So it's about that third eye is nothing more than a conceptualization of a world that is readily available and open to you. That's all that really is, really. Remember, the hidden aspect of our world is that nothing is truly hidden and everything is shown in plain sight. So the only way to hide these things is to put a shallow, thin coating on them that simplifies them and dumps them down to what they are not. So it's your job and your prerogative, because your prerogative is my prerogative, meaning our spiritual advancement and our spiritual survival. Your prerogative is not to look at, oh, I'm running out of money. Oh, might I get eaten by wolves if I go into this? No, 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 no. Your prerogative is, let me see and let me listen. Let me take a long gander at what my life is trying to show me and tell me, because I'll tell you what, extraordinary things happen to extraordinary minds. And when you stop thinking in terms of survival and start thinking in terms of spiritual advancement, you will see that the world around you changes. And you quantum shift into that other earth, which most of you have probably not seen, but some of us have. And some of us have seen it because we were given it. We were given it as a template of what we could help create. And then in the faith that spurns out of that knowing, and I'll try to describe to you how it feels before we end it. The faith granted from that knowing of what the highest potential of our planet is, or our existence, right, is what drives us forward to wade into the fire and save a few babies, like most people would not do, especially not those who are narcissistic. Only that can inspire you to wade into danger. When your intuition is telling you, this is the moment, put it all on the line, prove to me that it's not just about survival, that it's about something more than flesh and bone and satiation and feeding yourself just so you can shit it out later. Prove it to me. That is a true higher calling. And what a realm that is populated with high functioning souls, young souls still, but high functioning, looks like and feels like. It feels like a dream, or waking up from a dream and being in a warm place. And it feels like a blanket of warmth and light fully covering you, and all the pain and the burden and heaviness and the weight of existence is just pulled from you. And in that room you're in, there is someone there that you love very much, and that you know that they also love you. You can just feel it. You know, it's a knowing. It's not a feeling, it's a knowing. And you've missed them. You've missed them dearly. You didn't know you've missed them. You didn't remember that you've missed them. But you've missed them so much, and you're overjoyed with the union between you and them. You are in a blissful state where the illusion has fallen away, and what remains is warmth, and what remains is fullness. That's what it feels. That's what the vision of the new earth feels like. Like being welcomed and cared for by someone you missed very much, it feels like reunion. And those who know what this feels like will, because they are not narcissistic, they will want you to experience it for yourself. If you've gone to heaven and it was wonderful, right? And you know that, because heaven is a test as well, right? If you've been in that heavenly state and you know it's been wonderful, and you know you you know have the knowledge that there are some people who have never gone to heaven and they've gone to other places, they've chosen to go to other places that are not as wonderful, right? Your utmost desire would be to share this so they can feel this reunion with you. And you might just make it your life's purpose. Right? You might just make it your life's purpose to grab whoever you can and however you can in your own imperfect, sinful ways, as we all are, and not sell them the idea of it, but try to allow them to find that vision dream in their own minds. And that will become reflected in their physiognomy as well. And sometimes you'll just see a person and they're very plain and there's nothing unique about them, yet they're glowing. Because wherever they walk, wherever they go, they bring with them a quantum shift, a complete dismantling of survival based living. That is someone who is in this world, aware in this world, but living as if they live in the world they want to create that has yet come to pass. But maybe they've just seen that, right? Maybe they've just felt it. Maybe they've dreamt it. Maybe they heard it in their mother's song, right? And maybe you've heard it too, or you will hear it in the future. But you'll only hear it if you stop living for living, and if you start living as if you've already died. All right. This is where we ended today, my friends. There's no use diving into physiognomy and behavior and so on and so forth on a single space. Perhaps when we release some manuscripts or documentation regarding that, we can explore those areas more intricately. There's a lot more detail to it, obviously, but thanks for those who are live and listening in, and whoever's listening in later on to the recording. Thanks to you too, and I hope you have an amazing day. We're gonna do this again sometime. Next time, we'll talk about magic. I'll see you guys later.